Ooh, this is exotic. Muscle Cat Media. Nice. Cultural.
Well, it's the weekend here on the Expats, and that means it is time for the Weekend Pickoff. Rolsey, Eric, and Spoon, the gang all together ahead of not only a big weekend of baseball, but a weekend of sport. We're so blessed in this country of Australia for many reasons, but great weekend of sport on the long weekend last week. You've got Gather Round in the AFL going on in Adelaide this weekend. Great slate of NRL. The racing this weekend, Championships Day 2 at Randwick. The Masters is on. Full slate of baseball, which is what we're here to talk about. But before we do that, Eric, you're just signaling at me. You're not even giving me time to introduce you before you have something to say. But go ahead.
You just forgot the most important sporting event on the calendar.
What is it? What is it?
Consume my life for 24 hours a day for the next 8 days. Australian Women's Baseball Championships, baby. Emerald spots on the line. That's where I'll be. So if you don't hear from me, I'll be watching baseball in Altona with Justin Huber.
And all the coverage of that on baseball.com.au and Baseball Plus. Shameless plug there. Speaking of shameless plugs, like 20 minutes before we came on air, Spoon had, like, if Bad Beats is a thing with Scott Van Pelt, whatever the other guy's name is, that they do on ESPN, which is an amazing show, by the way. Like, it's the best 10 minutes of television.
Ridiculous.
Spoon had the opposite of that. Actually, I think they could reverse Bad Beats because on the other side of a bad beat is always a good win, and that's what Spoon just had. In a game that was 1-1 going into extra innings, Spoon had the over 7.5, and what ensued from there, my good man?
Insane.
Yeah, so the Rockies scored. Then the Padres had a chance to walk it off, but didn't. They settled for an 11th inning where the exact same thing happened. Then the Rockies had a chance at getting their ghost runner or their Manfred man home in the 12th. Failed to do so, which set the stage for the Padres to walk it off, which they did, but in a much better way than expected. So the game's 3-3 at this point. Tatis bunts over the Manfred man to third, 1 out. The Rockies did what I like teams doing, which you can only do if you really trust your pitcher to throw strikes. And then they intentionally walked the next two guys to load the bases, set up the force play at home, bring the infield right in. The problem with trusting your pitcher to throw strikes is you throw a middle meatball to Xander Bogaerts, who dispatched it for a grand slam and cashed in 7-3 over 7.5. And you're right. I guess there's someone out there who took the under who was laughing the entire game because there was very little signs of that game ever hitting the total.
Well, there's some poor bastard on the East Coast of the United States that just went to bed after Mason Miller shut the door in the ninth inning and was like, whatever, dude, this is going to end up being a 2-1 game. Somebody's going to win it, and we'll check his FanDuel account or whatever the hell in the East Coast of the U.S. when he wakes up in the morning and go, what on earth happened?
There's a lot of times when you're betting where you make a good play and get a bad result. So you deserve to occasionally make a bad play and get a good result. And that's effectively what this was. It's better to be lucky than good sometimes.
Well, I have a feeling that series, it might not be the last that we hear about that series, Padres and Rockies out west. Just before that, I love the term the Manfred man. It works for so many different reasons, right? Because of, obviously, it's a guy who's not an earned run. He's just a man that's put on base for a rule that obviously is named after Rob Manfred. But then it incorporates Manfred Mann's Earth Band, which I think sung the song Blinded by the Light, I want to say, was their big hit, like in the 70s, which I always think is ELO, but it's not. I love the term the Manfred Man, but just on that, it's probably anecdotal and it's probably not a huge jump, but ever since that rule has been put in place, I wonder how many times that's happened. Not saying going from a 1-1 game when you need over 7.5, but do you think that that's taken into account when making over-unders?
It's got to be worth a tiny bit, and the closer the game, the more you would weight it, right? Like if two teams are $1.90, theoretically there's a much higher chance it's going to go to extras than, the Dodgers versus the Rockies at Dodger Stadium. I think they'd maybe factor in like 0.1 or 0.2 of a run, and I think it would factor in more on lower totals than higher totals. I think anecdotally I've probably had it happen 7 or 8 times in the 5 years, which that doesn't say that much when you realize how many baseball games I bet on. But I've never had it happen from 1-1 before. I've had it like, if you're on over 7.5 and you get to 3-3, these days you actually think you're probably home. Whereas before the Manfred man, that was no guarantee at all, because there's a very good chance, the road team would fail to score, the home team would eventually score, but it could take hours more. Like they showed highlights during the 12th inning of these two teams a few years ago went to 21 innings. It took 6.5 hours or something like that. So in one sense, it's great that we have that rule from a betting perspective, but imagine the East Coast guy who stayed up for that game for another 3 hours just to lose. Like, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, RIP fictitious East Coast guy that we made up. It would be interesting to look at the numbers if there would be a way to drill down in it. A, how many games have gone 2 extra innings since that rule has been put in place, and what the difference is in, a similar time frame with how many runs are scored in extras compared to
Mm.
before. Because I imagine, like you said, it's odd if a team doesn't score, right? You expect the away team to score a run
Yeah,
at the
I mean,
top of the 10th inning, and you just assume, you
Yeah.
just always assume as the home team, you're going to have to score 2 in order to win the game. So, in essence, going to extra innings is worth 3 runs as opposed to, back in the day, you would see teams bunt initially once they got a runner at first base. If they got a leadoff walk, they would bunt to try and get that
Golden
guy at
ticket.
second base, and everything else. So, definitely interesting. But hey, look, RIP East Coast guy, but good for Spoon and a great way to start the weekend. You're only as good as your next pick. But before we get to the picks, Spoon's got something that he wants.
Oh, yeah.
Spur of the moment to put on us, Eric. We have no idea what Spoon's going to do, but he's an ideas man, head of the ideas committee here at Baseball Expats, and he's got another one. So Spoon, let's hear it. What do you
Yeah,
got?
I mean, the disclaimer there is even I've rarely got an idea of what I'm going to do, so it's unfair to expect you boys to have any insight. But this is a comment I remember seeing on a Reddit thread like a couple of years ago, and I think it's more relevant now than ever. So I'm going to be interested in your thoughts. There is an epidemic in baseball right now of guys coming out of the college system or wherever it is who can throw heat with a lower sense of control, and there's a clear strategy from most pitching departments to pitch up and in. What that's led to, though, is a heap of guys getting drilled on the hand, or even worse, getting drilled on the head. And we've lost some great players, chunks of seasons because of things like that. And obviously this week that really came to the forefront with the crazy brawl between Soler and who was the Brave starter. It was like the first mound charge in 4 years or something like that. And it was great because baseball's awesome when that stuff's happening. And I saw a really funny comment of like, here comes
Lopez, I think, right?
yeah, Ronaldo Lopez. There's a comment. It was like, here come the bullpens, and it's just like 10 penguins just like waddling, because like by the time they get there, it's always over. It's probably the most like demonstrative but pointless thing in any sport. But I think that there needs to be some kind of discussion around hit by pitch and there being a little bit more consequence. And something I saw floated a few years ago was 2 ways you could go about it. The first one, either every pitcher who hits someone or every team that hits someone, it increases how many bases it's worth. So if you drill a guy, it's effectively a single, hit by pitch. If you drill a guy a second time, it's a double. So if you got a guy on second, that guy's scoring. The other way you could do it is you could almost zone where you hit the guy. Like if you hit the guy, on the front of the leg on a slider that's kind of down and buried away, it's very different to an up and in fastball hitting a guy's helmet. You could attribute 3 bases to that effectively. I think that changes the risk reward profile significantly. And I think we're just seeing more and more hit by pitches because of both the strategy side, but also the guys are coming up with control, with no control, but crazy velo. And the approach is like, we'll teach him how to throw strikes later. So I think this protects position players and it keeps some of our stars on the game for a bit longer. What say ye two to those proposals?
Well, I like it. I think that's pretty cool. Like, I kind of like the idea that you get punished more, punishment fits the crime kind of thing. The only thing is like, where would you have StatCast or an umpire or ABS, however you want to do it, like help determine whatever, I don't know what do you call it? Like a danger zone? Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, I think contact above the shoulder, like if you hit the helmet, it's a triple, right? If you hit the hands up and in, it's probably a double. If you plunk a guy square in the back, it's probably a double because those are usually intentional. And it also takes away a little bit of like what still lingers in the game with the whole you hit our guy, so we're going to drill your best guy kind of thing. Well, if that's going to be a double, that might change the outcome significantly.
Do you do it so it's like, I guess it depends how much of an injury issue it is, right? Like you see some sports that just ban things completely. I'm sure there's a better example, but I'm thinking of like, in tennis, if you hit the chair umpire by like, it doesn't matter. It could be a fluke off the side of the tennis racket. If it hits the chair umpire, you forfeit the match. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying your team forfeits, but is it like if you hit a batter on the head, is the pitcher automatically ejected?
Yeah, potentially. I'm not sure that changes we still have situations where guy like, do you remember the Kevin Cash thing with the Yankees a few years ago where he's like, we got a bullpen full of guys who can throw 100 at your head? Like, if
Yeah.
you're just warming a guy up to go out and plunk someone, does that move the needle as much as, okay, all of a sudden we've got like Trent Grisham on third base because we drilled him?
Yeah, or it's like, does the next, if you want to go other creative ideas, does like the next batter start at like a 2-0 count or something like that? You know, like if you don't want to give them the free base, does it mean that like, okay, your hit by pitch is worth 2 ball, or is it worth another walk? Is it worth 2 walks? So instead of the double, is it like you're on base and the next guy's on base, and now all of a sudden it's runners on first and second? Or if there was a runner on second and first and second already, it costs them a run, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you do it like that? What do you think, Rolsey?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, because baseball is you play the long game in baseball, obviously, right? Like, it's 162 game season. Do you go to some sort of like prior offenses charge sheet for pitchers so that, if a guy has his fourth instance of doing that in a season, obviously his suspension becomes way longer than what it would have been. But also, it's like if you hit a guy up and in on a curveball, that has to be a different punishment than if you throw a 102-mile-an-hour fastball at a guy's ear hole, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's hard to have something that is specific. So I think you would go more the long game to say, look, if Mason Miller, just because we were talking about him, he's the reliever that I have front of mind and can throw 1,000,000 miles an hour. If he's already got 2 prior offenses of hitting a guy, and on the third you get a suspension that is ridiculous, it's going to probably dissuade the Padres from throwing at anybody. I mean, that's a bad example because a reliever probably would be less likely to do that, especially
He can
in a
choose where he
closing
throws
position,
it
but
as well.
yeah, well, yeah, and he doesn't fit into the mold of what you're talking about. So I mean, yeah, like you can talk about a guy like a Michael McGreevy, for instance. He doesn't throw that hard, but has had a lot of command issues throughout his career. If that were to happen, and say it's after your second offense, it's a massive suspension. It may dissuade teams from doing it. I don't know, but to your point, like Kevin Cash was talking about, if you've just got a load of guys in the bullpen to throw 1,000,000 miles an hour and none of them have a prior offense, and they'll just bring somebody out of the pen to do it. So it probably doesn't dissuade teams from doing it that way either.
Yeah, like, it's alarm bells when we're calling up some dude from AAA who has like a 4.5 whip, but he throws 101. It's like, okay. Yeah, I mean,
some Cuban dude that's 250 pounds that has
yeah,
no right to be in the big
you
leagues,
watch
but he
his
can
3
throw it.
warm-up pitches sail over the backstop, and you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, I get your example is kind of like how technical fouls work in the NBA, right? Like, you accumulate too many of those, that it kind of becomes a tipping point. But I also feel like what's frustrating there, and it happens a lot in AFL, for example, like you dangerously tackle a guy, you could be out for 6 weeks, but their best player's out for the rest of the game. I don't care that the teams they're about to play for the next 6 weeks are benefited because we got screwed over in that game. So that's where I'm kind of leaning more towards in-game consequences.
Yeah.
Because what good is it if now you're weakened for your road trip against our division rival?
Well, and we're seeing it more in the NRL. It happened in the West Tigers Parramatta Eels game that we were all following. I'm a big West Tigers fan. Eric was a big Parramatta Eels fan last week simply because he likes to
Lifelong.
see me suffer. But
No.
it happened. It happened last week. Bailey Simonson gets tackled in the air, and what is a routine? I mean, it happens 4 or 5 times a game, and then all of a sudden, Luke Laulili has to go to the bin solely because of the fact that Bailey Simonson was injured. And you're right, he's out for the season. The Tigers get a guy in the bin for 10 minutes and still come back and win the game. So even though there was a punishment that was specifically because the injury occurred, it still probably wasn't a big enough injury as far as Eels fans are concerned. But in that case, it wasn't intentional, and it's something that happens heaps in rugby league, right? So it's, I don't know that there is an exact science to it, but I agree with the hypothesis because you can't just be throwing at guys' head, especially the way that guys can throw now up to 105, 106 miles an hour. And we don't need superstars of the game out for an entire season because a pitcher is trying to get retribution for something that happened the night before, et cetera, right? We don't need that in the game. So I don't hate the idea of doing something with it. It's just, how do you get it right? And I think if Major League Baseball has taught us anything with rule changes, if they were to bring something in, it would be something it's probably experimented with in independent baseball, then minor leagues, and then the major leagues before we ever saw something in the MLB.
I think as well, if you look at like the increase in strikeout rate over the last few years, the actual consequence of putting a guy on first doesn't matter as much as it would have 10 years ago, right? Like base runners are probably more disposable in the sense that no worries, I'm just going to throw up and in at the next guy and he's going to chase because he's Javi Baez and he's never seen a pitch he doesn't like.
I don't hate the idea of a hit by pitch just being worth 2 bases. Yeah, I don't hate that idea.
Yeah, I don't mind that one either. I think that is it too. But yeah, if you want to phase it in, do you try to something that's a bit less consequential in terms of, like traditionalists will say, oh, it's messing with the game and the whatever. Well, what if you kept some baseball elements in it that didn't have like an exact consequence, right? So here we're saying go to second base, which I agree with, by the way. I'm just playing my own devil's advocate. Like if you said, all right, free ball or free 2 balls, next batter starts with a 1-0 or 2-0 count, then maybe that means that the pitcher still has a way to get out of it. Like obviously they can't go up and in again because they need to work their way around the count kind of thing. Or is it like, we have these rules where it's like you have to keep a pitcher in for minimum 3 batters. Does it become like a pitcher can't check the runner or throw back for the next 3 pitches or something like that? So effectively, the person at first base has a better odds of stealing second. It just has to come down to, the catcher throwing him out. It's just like, hey, if you I'm just thinking laterally in terms of, do you really want to screw with the game that way? Or do you want to keep a baseball play from still happening?
I guess the precedent being set of the Manfred man coming in.
Yeah, that's
Do
true.
you know what I mean? Like, that feels like the biggest actual game change. I know, like pitch
That's
clock,
true.
or like kind of like slightly bigger bases, but like a guy just vanishing, or a guy just appearing from thin air on second base to start an inning, I feel is the biggest like paradigm shift we've had in baseball scoring. So changing a hit by pitch from 1 to 2 would probably be smaller in comparison.
Then that's it. You hit the guy up and in, the Manfred man comes in at any point in the game.
Well,
Yeah,
look, it's probably not going to dissuade teams from doing it if they're up 7-0 in the 4th inning and they want to hit a guy, right? So you've still got that issue where if the game is out of hand, you might still throw at a guy. Bring in the ghost runner. We used to use it in the backyard all the time when you didn't have enough kids to play. Somebody was on base and needed to go hit, just bring in the ghost runner. If you have a double, it's worth 2 runs because there was a supposed runner on base that nobody could see. Look, it's a good discussion, and I don't hate the idea of doing something about it because I think you're right. I mean, guys aren't going to start throwing any slower, and the game is only going to get more competitive, and teams are going to want to protect their investments of guys that they're paying $60 million for, and they don't want to risk a rush of blood to a head for a guy who can throw 105 but can't control it, costing them a season of their $60 million guy, which, oh, by the way, they'd still be on the hook to pay because Major League Baseball contracts are absurd. But no, it's good discussion, Spoon. I like it. Keep bringing it to the table.
Always.
You keep scrounging the bowels of Reddit.
Oh yeah, the deep, dark depths.
Well, let's get into the tips. Spoon's got a couple for us. Eric has one as well. Eric, we might start with you. You are going to the Twins Blue Jays series this weekend.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of a funny line, right? Like the Toronto Blue Jays have been playing some really sloppy baseball and they are very injured and all of that stuff. Now, granted, they beat the Dodgers. There's a bit of a feel good. Obviously, it would have been complete panic stations had they lost that game again. They play the Minnesota Twins at home. And for some reason, the markets are, giving the Jays quite favorable odds, like $1.71 at home. The weird one here is that Patrick Corbin is starting this game. And I have no idea what Patrick Corbin is going to look like in an emergency start after he got called up yesterday after a year last year that wasn't so good on a team that doesn't have their cleanup hitter, on a team that has been playing sloppy baseball, and on a team that doesn't have their starting catcher. They're going against the Minnesota Twins, and Simeon Richardson's been pretty good this year so far. Like he's had two good starts so far, and the Jays offense isn't exactly firing. So I was a little bit surprised to see the Minnesota Twins just on a straight up win at $2.20. So I know you don't want to bet against your team, but the Twins have been playing some decent ball lately. I mean, they beat the Tigers today, yesterday. I've lost all track of days, whenever it was. So Richardson on the mound, Corbin on the mound. I think that pitching matchup favors the Twins. The Twins have always played the Jays pretty good. Twins have won 4 games in a row. Don't forget, like they just swept the Tigers. So I'm going to say that, yeah, good team versus bad team right now. I mean, I think the Jays will win a couple games on the weekend, but I think the Twins will win on Friday.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like it. I looked at that one a little bit, and I think where I was a little bit different maybe is this Jays offense is just going to randomly explode at some point. So I don't know whether instead of taking the 220, you'd want to look at the team total for the Twins, right? Like road team, 9 innings, questionable pitching, depleted bullpen. Can they put up 5 and the Jays put up 10? And that way you just kind of isolate that side of the matchup. But yeah, to your point, you've got to look at the form and start the trusted. And the Jays right now don't look like putting up 10 runs. So 220 is the right price to take.
Yeah, and Richardson's looked pretty good, man. Like he hasn't walked a lot of guys. He's only allowed 3 runs in his 11 innings so far. So I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that the Twins just win this game. And if I'm just going based on how teams are playing right now, and 220 is not that.
Yep.
What sort of run total are you looking at for around even money for Twins team total, Spur? 4.5?
Yeah, 4.5 is what I was looking at $2. Well, $2.05. It's almost the same price for 4.5.
Jay's offense, you are right, is going to explode. Like, when they're 1 for 24 with bases loaded, like that's going to even out, right?
They're too bad to be true, whereas the Twins offense looks kind of sustainable. And Patrick Corbin, I thought, was out of the league 3 years ago when he had negative WAR for the Nationals. So I think like zooming in on that side of it is a lot better. And that way you also have the benefit of you don't have to cheer against your own team. You can watch them put up 6 runs as long as they give up 5.
Yeah, I still think that the Twins are going to win this game.
So Eric's going against his own intuition, taking the Twins over the Jays, but maybe have a look at that Twins over for just.
I would say I'm going with my tuition.
Well, you're going against your heart. It's head over.
I'm going against my heart. Yes,
which doesn't happen on this show very often. So look, it is good to switch things up. Spoon, you've got a couple plays for us as well. What have you got for the Saturday slate?
Yeah, I've had a really tough time dropping down from 3 to 2 because I don't want to just take up the airwaves for too long. So keep an eye on Twitter for a little bit more there. I'm going to leave the Cardinals game alone because I'm batting about 1 for 74.
Dustin May against his old team. What's Dustin May's ERA right now? I think it's higher than
15,
current,
I think.
Yeah,
I was looking at
higher
that
than
too.
my current age is what I was going to say.
Yeah,
so that should be fun.
I'll spoiler alert what I'm thinking now. I think the 7.5 is too low. I really like Connolly early, but I think he's going to run into a tough, gritty, was it Youngry Cardinals team?
That's it.
The 7th in the league right now with runs scored. I think this Boston offense will start to perform better. I mean, the reasons I didn't like him preseason was the pitching more than the hitting. I think runs will come. So 7.5 felt low, but let's leave that one alone because I want to zoom in on the Angels-Reds game first. And I'm going to go with calling this guy Koshi because I consistently pronunciate surnames wrong and butcher it. So you know who I'm talking about, but we're going to go with Koshi, and he's up against Chase Burns. And obviously I'm big on Chase Burns. I've invested in him for the preseason futures, and he's had a really good start. But his lines are just unbackable. Like you can't get me to take over 7.5 at $1.77. Yeah, I think he's going to consistently sit at 6 or 7. He's not going to be pushed too deep into his starts. He wasn't even potentially going to be in the rotation to start the year. So we're kind of already ahead there. Don't need to get greedy. What I like was the price for Kashanowitz. Ooh, I just let it out without even thinking about it. Maybe that's the problem. I just overthink these pronunciations too much.
That's the play.
It was really good in his first outing. He didn't get the strikeouts. But if you look at his CSW, so called strikes and whiffs, in his first start, he had 29 strikes swinging and strikes looking out of his 94 pitches. So nearly 35% CSW rate, which is a really good strikeout indicator. Problem is he had 5 walks and he only struck out 3. And this is against a Houston team that forever have been a strikeout nightmare to back against. Then he followed it up with a start against the Mariners, where this time he had 27 CSWs, so down 2 in 86 pitches, a shorter outing, and he struck out 7. He got the walks under control with 2, and he ended up having a 0 earned run start. Really good against the Mariners. Tomorrow against the Reds for 5 strikeouts, he's $2.78, which is, I think, crazy to me because the Reds they're a team I'm going to keep attacking from a strikeout point of view. They're 21st in baseball, 25.1% strikeout rate. And I like that the CSW stuff, if you look at the Astros start to the Mariners start, he ended up doing more with less, which I think just tells you that Houston are really good strikeout preventers, which we saw all year. Last year, they're 3rd in baseball this year. And that now correlates, I think, really nicely to a Cincinnati start tomorrow. So five strikeouts for Kashanowitz at $2.78 is going to be my first play. Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think that I don't know how much more eloquently you could have described that. I think the whiff rate and the CSW rate is probably the one that seals the deal there. I don't know how to argue any other way other than I'm in.
Perfect.
Let's hear your second one, Spoon.
All right. The second one, it's another guy I think made tremendous leaps from his first start to his second start. And you'd be all over this guy being a Japanese import. Tatsuya Imai,
Yeah.
I'm getting that one right. He was really highly touted coming into the league, obviously. First start just did not go to plan at all. The command wasn't quite there. The Angels were quite patient. He struck out 4, he walked 4, he gave up 4 earned runs. It was just 4s across the board for Imai in 2.2 innings, and he got hooked after 74 pitches. He still had 23 CSWs, which is a really good sign, but just couldn't get himself out of those tricky innings, which cut his outing short. He then backed it up on the road against the Athletics, and he was stellar. He threw 94 pitches, 5.2 innings, 32 CSWs, and he struck out 9. Tomorrow he's going up against the Mariners, who are second worst. Where am I? Fourth worst in baseball from a strikeout point of view. Actually striking out more at home than they are on the road. And for 6 or more strikeouts, he's currently $2.01, which I think is crazy because he could have easily gotten that 6 strikeout mark in the first start. He had 74 pitches and walked 4 guys. So that seems like his absolute floor, well below the floor, probably the basement. He looked closer to maybe his ceiling, if not, a little bit beyond that with 9 strikeouts against the A's his next time round. So to give me just over even money for 6 strikeouts against one of baseball's most consistent strikeout sides, I really like.
Have you seen his wrong way slider?
Yeah.
It's gross. And his Vulcan changeup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a guy that is probably not to the same degree, but he feels like Chase Burns of last year. Remember when the markets were just like not caught up, where we were like, oh my goodness, Chase Burns is going to strike out so many guys. And then he had like 3 outings in a row where he struck out like 9, 10 guys. And now you'll never see a Chase Burns strikeout market that's favorable ever again. But he kind of feels like that kind of territory, and those numbers kind of back it up.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting $5 about 8 strikeouts if you want to play a little top up as well, which I think, if you look at all the strikeout data, the Athletics and the Mariners have been almost on par as far as where they're striking out.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking he can back up a really good road start with another really good road start, 8 strikeouts at $5 is crazy too. But give me the 6 or more at 201, because to your point, the top end of pitching talent now, if you want to be following big names, you're looking for 8 strikeouts to get $1.70, and it's just, there's no value there. But you also can't take the unders either, because they are capable of those 1, 2, 3 strikeout innings that just kind of puts that to bed. So you just have to leave them, and I'm always kind of looking for that next guy who I think it's taken the market a little bit to catch on. And I love
he's as good as bet as any man to be that next guy. Like, he's seriously nasty.
Yeah, and 30, what was it, 34, 32 called strikes and whiffs. Like, that's, if you're pitching those numbers anywhere consistently, you're going to be getting 8, 9, 10 strikeouts a lot of the time.
Yeah, and you even look at his stuff in Japan, right? Like, he was well over a strikeout per inning last year when he had his sub 1 whip, doesn't walk a lot of guys, like he just pounds the strike zone. His risk is always going to be like his stuff just isn't moving, or like his pitches look like they require a lot of feel. So it's like, I feel like with Imai, he's either going to go 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, or 2 innings, 7 runs, right?
Like a Kodai Sanger as well, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got that in him too. It's like he's barely getting out of the second or third, or he's going 6 or 7 deep. But he's 94. It's only, most guys have made 2 or 3 starts, so these rankings aren't huge yet, but he's 94th percentile whiff rate. Like, that's, when you're playing up at those levels and you're giving me plus money about 6 strikeouts. Yeah, I'm very keen.
All right, summarize that for us, Spoon. What were your 2 picks to lock it in so Rolsey can write this down diligently?
All right, so we've got Kashanowitz for 5 or more strikeouts on the road against the Reds, $2.78. I will be also watching that one and cheering for some Chase Burns strikeouts. And then we've got Tatsuya Imai on the road against the Mariners for 6 or more strikeouts at $2.01. So a couple of plus money players there. We technically profit if we get one from two, but it could be a nice fill up if we get both. And I'll
Well,
probably
don't forget the Twins. We have that third
Twins at
shot there.
220 as well. Yeah. So if we go 2 from 3, we're going to be a few units there. And I think at the moment, it's only Sportsbet that have some of these pitching props out for some of the later games. So I'm interested to see if Imai, like if I can get $6 about 8 strikeouts, that's going to have me really excited.
If you want to talk about good beats or good wins, how you talked at the beginning, I got a bad beat for you. Not even a bad beat, just not even a competitive beat. I have a little bit on the Masters, right? And the way you go at the Masters and the golf tournaments, right, is you generally try to narrow it down to 3 or 4 golfers with a little bit of value. You know, you put a unit on each of them, you put a couple units on each of them. If one hits, like, you more than make your money back, but your outlay risk is obviously higher. But it makes it kind of fun because you're watching a golf tournament, right? So I ended up let me pull it up right here. I think I've got 4 different guys that I've got some bets on. And you know what? Like, I'm actually, you go through some of the analytics, you're feeling good about it, right? Like, I actually have Patrick Reed, even though he's probably like a terrible human. He's in the mix. I've got Xander Schauffele. He's in the mix. I've got Tommy Fleetwood. He's in the mix. And I got one more. I can't even remember who it was. But I do have the guy that was red hot coming into this tournament was Bryson DeChambeau. And all the metrics, like, you go through these things that, like, the last 17 winners have met all of these categories, and then narrows it down to like a list of 6 possible people, hits every year. So, DeChambeau was high up on all of these. He's red hot in live. He's 1-2. He changed his routine, was talking about maturity. I ended up staying up to watch a little bit of Bryson's opening round. And early in the round, he got caught in a bunker that he needed like 4 shots to get out of the bunker. And he fired off a 7 over on the first round. And I hammered Bryson DeChambeau to have the lead after the first round of the Masters. And there he is, sitting at 7 over, 12 strokes back of Rory McIlroy.
Wow.
Wasn't even competitive.
You can tell me then, because I'm going to be honest, I'm a sucker for promo markets, even sometimes when I don't know what is going on. I have 2 Masters bets on I'm looking at right now. You can tell me how they're going because I haven't even looked at this.
Yeah.
The first one is 21-1, max bet $10, which I took. Rory McIlroy to beat DeChambeau. Sounds like that happened.
It's done already. Rory's he literally is the clubhouse leader. He shot 5 under in pretty tough conditions, and DeChambeau's 7 over.
Okay.
Like, DeChambeau ain't even going to see a weekend. Rory's going to be playing, so you can cash that in.
So that part's done. Then I need L. Aberg and J. Rose in the top 10.
Yeah, so wait, Ludwig Aberg, he's the guy that I have to win as well. He was my other one. And
is he a chance for top 10?
Well, Aberg I have to win. I actually hammered him on a couple different markets. So, like, I think it was reasonable. He was 2 over, I think. Let me look this up. He was okay, and then he kind of fumbled around late. He's still in the mix because he's a kind of guy that can shoot low, but he's sitting 30th or 40th right now. He's going to be fighting for his life for the weekend. 2 over, but, it's still an early round, right? Like, he goes out there, shoots 3 under tomorrow. He's right back in contention. So,
okay,
he's still in the mix. But
J. Rose was the other one.
Justin Rose. He was good. Yeah, he was 2 under. He's sitting in 6th.
Okay, so I'm rolling on Aberg or Aberg with you to potentially win $200.
So you need Aberg. If Aberg makes the cut, I feel like it's a good sign because it means he played well on Friday to get into the weekend, and then we'll take a few more risks. And he's a pretty exciting player. So I like this bet. You're still in the mix, but yeah.
The other one
lines aren't looking so. I've got a few in the tables. Xander Schauffele's the big one for me, I think.
The other one's any Aussie to finish top 5.
Well, Jason Day is 3rd right now, I think, or 2nd. Okay. Yeah, he's 3 under. He had an unbelievable round, but the next closest guy is Adam Scott. He'll tail off. Cam Smith didn't look very good. So you're relying on Jason Day, and Jason Day is well, I mean, he's 30, maybe 38, 39. You never know. Veteran guy, get around the course. He's got to finish top 5.
Yeah, top 5.
I got a couple top 10 ones in there. There's a few good markets out there. It makes watching it fun. Well, Spoon, thank you for joining us. Rolsey, he is now sitting quietly somewhere.
He's the ghost runner.
He's the ghost runner. So maybe I'll just take this opportunity to sign things off. There's your 3 plays for the weekend. I know, hey, more reason to watch Cincinnati Reds baseball. We're always finding a way to get around it. Go Blue Jays, maybe the Twins, who knows. And have a great weekend and gather around, everybody.